Walters. We're excited to share the story of our final inductee tonight, and Mike Walters has a fascinating story to tell, how he found and then thrived in the propane industry. As we'll learn tonight, Mike never envisioned working in propane, but then he got behind the wheel of a par gas bobtail in California, and everything changed. Mike told us that one day early in his career, while standing out in the house filling a customer's tank, he thought to himself, you know, I'm not making any money, but I'm having a hell of a good time. Nearly 45 years later, I think Mike will admit that he's still having a hell of a good time. Let's take a look at Mike's career.
Mike Walters is having a ball. It's how the safety and training professional and subject matter expert often describes his current role in the propane industry. Walters is the Vice President of Safety and Fleet for Superior Energy Systems, but he also dedicates much of his time to bettering the industry overall. He works with the Propane Education and Research Council to modernize the industry's comprehensive employee training programs, and he serves as Secretary of the Ohio Propane Gas Association. This after nearly 45 years in the propane industry, an industry that was never on his radar while growing up in upstate New York. Instead, Walters wanted to be the guy crawling under race cars and dirtying his clothes at the track, where his father served as race director. His focus would shift to fire. He wanted to be the guy crawling through burning buildings, saving lives as a member of a fire service team. Walters got to do both on some level, even climbing up the ranks of the fire service to become an assistant chief. But life has a funny way of redirecting one's path into unforeseen fields. For Walters, that involved a move west in the late 1970s to follow his parents to California. Suddenly, he's driving a bobtail for propane retailer Pargas, a position he viewed as only temporary. Until he began to immerse himself in the propane industry, working as a driver, service technician, and eventually moving into retail management with AmeriGas, at one point managing 6 stores in California. Walters' safety career began in 1993 when AmeriGas promoted him to Northeast Region Safety Director. Overseeing more than 100 locations in 16 states, he realized he needed to deepen his knowledge of industry safety and surround himself with the right people. He joined organizations for safety professionals, read books, and volunteered alongside other propane industry leaders. He also got involved with National Fire Protection Association and National Propane Gas Association committees, and codes and standards groups, as well as with state propane associations. If there's work to be done in safety and training, there's a good bet Walters is involved. Walters will turn 70 this year, but the NPGA's 2018 Safety Award winner has no plans to step away from his work anytime soon. Why retire if I've got something to give the industry, he said.
We're going to do something a little different with Mike's introduction tonight. Brian Richardson broke the news to Mike during the Ohio Propane Gas Association meeting last fall. But little did Mike know that Brian was recording that special moment on his phone. So with Mike's permission, we're excited to show you all a glimpse of what happens behind the scenes when an inductee learns about the Hall of Fame honor. Check it out.
To work, huh?
Yeah,
I really enjoy that. You know, I get to talk to Ellen every month.
Oh, yeah.
And,
Right.
that stuff back and forth.
Yeah, there's a lot of good stuff in there.
Oh my God. Oh my God. It's my ballot.
Yes, we do. So if that means that, you know.
I tried to mislead you a little bit there. Congratulations.
Thanks.
They wanted me to try to get you on video too. You opening that up.
Did you?
I did, yeah.
Oh, man.
Tried to mislead you a little bit, telling you it was something a little bit different, but
Unbelievable.
got some.
Not bad for a guy who never intended to be in the propane business.
Oh, nothing like being on the back end of a practical joke. Let me get my bearings here a minute. My sinuses are just driving me crazy. Believe that? So, I can see. So, now that I'm the only thing between you and the bar, I wanted to say that for about 30 years. We're only supposedly allowed a few minutes for this, but it seems like it's a short time to talk about 5 decades. This thing has been surreal at best. It's a dream, right? I'm deciding when I'm going to wake up. Sometimes I feel grateful. Sometimes I feel humble. Sometimes I feel like it's Groundhog Day and I'm in a Wayne's World commercial where Garth and Wayne and I are sitting there going, we're not worthy. First, I'd like to thank the LP gas staff for such a remarkable event. I think this is my 8th year. And of course, this is a real special. I love all of us in this class. I think the unique thing is we're all friends. Has that ever happened before? Where everybody on the class was actually friends. I don't know. I'm honored to take the stage with all of you, and I have to acknowledge my good friend Paula, who made the nomination, as well as I need to acknowledge my daughter Bailey. She's there somewhere. She's waving. Bailey's been in the industry since she was born. She actually worked for Superior Energy Systems when she was in college for a couple of years as an intern. So originally I wanted to tell you a story about the couple times in my career when I thought I knew everything there was to know about the propane business. I mean, you run 16 companies, or 6 companies rather, and it's hard not to think that you know everything there is to know about the propane business, right? But as I thought about what I wanted to say here tonight, I started to think about it, and I said to myself, wait a minute, how's a kid that grew up in the sticks in upstate New York come to stand before you tonight? How's that happen? Right? And I realized that much like the true definition of safety, it's really about the people. The people that pushed, poked, prodded, presented opportunities to a person to help them down the road. Okay. Many times throughout my career, the learning curve was steep. Many times it was vertical. I think you all know what I'm talking about. Yes, it all started with parkings. That day, I didn't even know what propane was. I came out of the fire service. To me, propane was that knob you turned off when you entered the burning structure. Because that's one of the things that happens in the fire service. They pull the power and turn off the gas, right? I remember Pargas, the name you can trust. They had TV and radio spots. And I remember seeing on TV, the TV spot with this nice pretty blue and white bobtail driving down the road, talking about, and the narrator talking about the virtues of the company.
And they had a little jingle at the end. I think it was the Gretchen campaign was what it's called. I may still have one of the cassettes to this. But at the end of the jingle went, Power Gas, the name you can trust. In the yard, we sang it, Power Gas, our tanks are all rust. So I'm going to mention a few people along the way here, because I believe that mentors could be anybody. Anybody you have a conversation with, anybody you associate with, anybody you work with could be a mentor, just by virtue of the relationship, right? And I may mention some names here that some of you may know or remember. It was Mark Franklin and Ted Franzen that brought me into Pargas. They gave me the opportunity to make some money while I was waiting for the fire service to do whatever they were going to do. And that's another story for another time. Then years later, it was David Fuson that brought me into CalGas. And a few years later, he was actually the one that actually ordered me into management. The short story was every year in my annual review, he'd say, well, what do you think about going into management? And I would say, nah, I'll just stay right here. I've seen what happens to them guys. They go someplace, they live high in the hog, then they end up pushing a shopping cart down Stockton Boulevard. I don't think that's for me. I'll just stay right here. Well, the third year of that conversation, he says, no, here's what you're going to do. And I ended up with my first 2 stores. Sometime later, there was a guy by the name of Ron Templeman who gave me the second 2 stores. And one of those stores was not a store at all. It was a scratch. And for those of you who don't know what a scratch is, that's when you go in and establish a company where there isn't one. So you got to do everything from the ground up. A couple of years later, it was Ron again who gave me store 4 or 5 and 6, which one of them had gasoline pumps out front. And I was getting the story, hey, by the way, the EPA wants to come next week, and they want to do a pressure test on that underground storage tank. You don't think that is a barrel of fun. So, then, a few years later, it was guys by the name of Jimmy Todd and David Hedrick that sucked me into the safety world, literally. Jimmy was the original CalGas safety director, and David was an instructor at the training center. And they just kind of said, you're the guy, you're coming with us. I didn't know what I was getting myself into at that point in time. That's when the committee work started. And as the video said, in the article in the magazine says, one day I woke up in Moncks Corner, South Carolina, and I looked in the mirror and I said, buddy, you're going to die. You're a propane guy in a safety position. You better go find out what it means to be a safety professional with propane background, or you're never going to survive this. So I did it. And, got some magazines, some books, Commission Associations, NFPA, American Society of Professional Engineers, and so forth, and started to look at what does safety really mean. It turns out, after a couple of weeks, couple of months, didn't take long, but I found out that safety is really about the people, isn't it? Right? So, that got me about 20 years down the road. Then the infamous phone call came. This guy on the other end of the line is going, come to Cleveland, write risk management programs for me. I said, hey, I can do that. Okay, I was on MPGA's risk management dashboard. I sat across the table from the EPA director, right? I can do this. This ought to be easy. And that guy was Don Furlong, sitting right over there. I got to Cleveland, and I know everything there is to know about the propane business, right? I got the safety thing, I got the RMP thing, this ought to be easy. It lasted about a day and a half. He walked into my office, he said, come on, we're going for a ride. And he took me out to an industrial plant. And as the magazine article talks about, I didn't think anything about it until he opened the door of the building right in case of the storage. And I walked in there and I saw this conglomeration of pipe and instrumentation and gauges and valves, and I'm going, what the heck is this? Turns out it was a proportional blender for an industrial system. They're mixing propane, air, maybe even natural gas at the time. And that was the day that he put me on the path in the industrial sector in the midstream. The learning curve pegged again, right? As it did every single time I got into something different. So, the mentors. I'd like to acknowledge some of these people, and you know who I'm talking about. Guys like Bill McHenry. Bill McHenry was a great mentor to me. Walter Cressman, Charlie Ory. Our offices sat side by side in Arizona, and we used to have these conversations, albeit comical, you know, what Charlie was. John Goronsky, who was the chairman of the council when I was chairman, took over as chairman of the advisory committee, safety group. David Luger, who you all may know, who was the logistics guy for AmeriGas in Houston, right? And I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Bill Young from Superior Energy Systems. It's hard not to learn something from a guy with a calculator watch. Certainly there were many more. All of my cohorts at the PERC Advisory Committee, the safety group, a lot of you are in the room today. My colleagues in Superior Energy Systems, you know, every day is a learning experience with all of them. And I have to finally mention my brothers from another mother. Randy Warner, where are you? Randy, Jeffrey Schaefer, and Ken Mueller, and their families. Right, those are my brothers from another mother, and I'm truly honored to have them. So finally, I'm truly humbled and honored. It's been a fun ride so far, looking forward to so much more. And I thank you, industry. I have been fortunate and even blessed to have been adopted by this family we call the propane industry.